Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining. Now, we're at a critical inflection point where AI is really reshaping the business landscape faster than ever before. Yet, with so much hype, it's easy for organizations to get lost in the noise. Today, we're going to try to cut through some of that clutter and focus on what truly matters: how business leaders can use AI strategically, ethically, and effectively to drive real outcomes. Now, joining me today is Aries Yousefian, a trusted advisor and recognized expert at the intersection of AI strategy, technology, and business leadership. Aries brings a practical, results driven perspective that helps organizations move beyond mere hype and translate AI into real competitive advantage. Welcome, Aries.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, how this format typically rolls is I'm just going to ask you some questions and just let it rip. So, first question. Now, with so much hype around AI, how can business leaders distinguish between, real actionable AI strategies and just those empty buzzwords?
Yeah. And no, I appreciate you having me on. And this is a very telling and present topic. A lot of business leaders, I think especially ones who've been kind of watching on the sidelines and who are a little bit more cautious around bringing AI into their businesses, these are the kind of things that they're wondering as well. And there's definitely a big hype curve going on right now where I wouldn't blame a business leader for being on that sideline and watching people go out and like their competitors go out and adopt it quickly with mixed results. And I think that's kind of what the market has shown us. Like, unless you're a shop of very large scale, it's going to be a challenge to integrate it into your business. And one thing is for certain, though, your knowledge workers, and it really depends on your industry and your vertical, but your knowledge workers are already using conversational assistants. I'm willing to bet. Like, whether they're using their own ChatGPT accounts, Gemini accounts, Claude accounts, or they're chatting with Grok. There's countless tools that they can access, and they're already exploring it on their own. If they're not exploring it, they've heard other people talking about it, and they've probably been drawn to using it. I've heard a lot of anecdotal stories about people saying this email looks like ChatGPT generated it. And those are examples of bad implementations of Gen AI where folks are kind of using it. Maybe they're being using it in kind of a lazy way. And if you're a business leader and you're seeing this in your own organization, but you haven't actually decreed anything, you haven't made any announcements, you haven't even addressed it from, let's say, a governance standpoint, you're actually putting yourself and potentially your customers' data at risk. So you have it's a double-edged sword. Part of you wants to use it to increase your bottom line, increase your revenue, be more competitive, be able to reach your customers faster. But on the other hand, you want to use it in a way which is respectful to your customers' information and their data, that protects your company and its reputation and any liability that you might be exposed to. And that's like doubly so for regulated industries like finance, healthcare, government, etc. So I think if you're on the sidelines, completely understandable. You should take the time to maybe have that conversation internally if you haven't, and I'm sure you have. If even like it's 2025, ChatGPT was announced in what, mid 2023, so people are already using it. Let's be realistic. If you're using Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, you've already probably seen Copilot and Gemini make its way into your subscriptions. So that's a great segue. Like, that's a great starting point just to get your knowledge workers using the conversational tools to begin with. But when you look into actually implementing it into your business, having that strict governance framework, so looking at how you can use it ethically, what are good use cases versus bad use cases, that's that's almost as varying as the industry and vertical that you're targeting, whether it's personalized content recommendations or product recommendations, or being able to summarize things faster for your operations team that's responding to customer queries. Those are just two use cases that come off the top of my head, along with just like making things faster, making your back office staff feel like they can get their work done a lot quicker, which actually helps you because it cuts down the amount of headcount you need to hire because you have an existing workforce which is much more efficient with their tools, and that's just by unlocking them with the conversational assistants. But when you start to make investments into third-party software vendors who are integrating AI, the questions around where's this data going? What's the residency of the data? Who has access to it? Is there any third-party data handlers or sub-processors? Those are all questions I think you, as a business leader, you have an ethical consideration, like a responsibility to have answers to.
It's funny because, we talk about staying on the sideline. And I have a very good friend who's a chief human resources officer at a major large enterprise company. And they are still on the sidelines and they have prohibited everyone within the organization. I mean, this is a multi-million billion dollar company. They're like, nope, we're not doing it. We don't trust it. So that kind of leads me into the next question of when you're ready to take that step, how do you evaluate partners to help in that process, help in that stuff? What are those key factors that you really need to prioritize to ensure collaboration, to ensure security, to ensure that you're not allowing your client and customers' data to be seen by everyone?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would I would argue the same set of criteria that you have that you use to evaluate partners for other consulting tasks should apply here as well, in terms of how well they show up. Are they willing to work with you? Do they take a product led approach? Though all of those are very valid in the context of preventing, leaks and security issues and some of the pitfalls that come with adopting AI tools. Like hallucinations are a big one. In terms of, especially for legal. Legal is deathly afraid of using it, especially here in Canada. I talk to a lot of legal firms, and they say things like, we're not going to touch it ever, just for compliance and regulatory risk alone. We don't trust the models. It's hard to find models which are vetted from a legal risk perspective, from a framework, and this will change. I'm willing to bet. Like I said, 2020, mid 2023, I still think we're in that golden age. Like the next 5 years is going to be one of insane disruption and innovation, and having the regulators kind of catch up with the advanced tools that the professionals want to use, which will accelerate their work. But it has to be done in a safe and, like I said, a safe and ethical manner. So whether it's a hosted model, whether you're using machine learning models which are hosted, or they're completely offline so the data isn't leaving, that's just from a technical perspective. Like, is the data staying within our guardrails, our data center? And then on top of that, like, how much can we trust the output coming from this large language model? Whether it's a large language model we're picking up off the shelf from, let's say, Hugging Face, that hasn't been fine tuned. How can we test to see if we can trust it, if it hallucinates? And if it does, how can we be aware of that? A lot of the conversational assistants we see, the tools, and the vendors will also say the same thing. The partners will say the same thing to you. It's like, you can trust it, but you also can't fully trust it. You still have to be a professional. You have to use your experience to vet whether this is valid or not. But I've seen the same I've seen this effect where folks rely on it so much they can kind of just accept the results at a blank slate, and that, without considering any further. I mean, I've seen this in meetings where people maybe might say something, and they're like, "Wait, that doesn't make sense," or they produce a report where they're citing some piece of information. That looks a little fishy. And then when you dig more into it, you're like, okay, that's kind of made up. That was clearly whoever wrote this email, who produced this report, trusted the LLM tool that they were using to help complete the task a little too much. And is the LLM going to fix that? No, I don't think it's going to fix it in the short term. I think it's a set of skills that you're going to have to seed. It's a new set of skills. It's a novel skill set that no one could have predicted would hit the market. But that's something that you have to consider for your labor force. And whoever partner you're bringing in to help you has to be able to address that.
Right.
And if they're working with a large subset of clients, I'm willing to bet they've experienced this, and that should come forward in the mitigation strategy of when they're actually working with you to implement any of these solutions.
Yeah, that's an important component of this. So, all right, last question, and we're going to have a part two of this series because the information you're providing is really valuable. But I don't want to. We could talk for an hour as we usually do. So, last question for this part. Why is clean, structured data, and I think you were kind of touching upon this, such a critical foundation for successful AI projects, and what steps can organizations take to really improve upon that data quality?
Oh, that's a great question as well. Now we're getting into the more like technical aspects of implementation, right? And in traditional machine learning, the term garbage in, garbage out, I mean, you could take that and apply it to things outside of machine learning as well, but garbage in, garbage out is very relevant. If you are adding a lot of extra things, and even in the context of, let's say, LLMs, if you're adding a lot of extra context that isn't entirely applicable to the type of output you're seeking, it's going to affect the efficacy of that response. It's going to affect how exact that response is. Now, when you're dealing with large subsets of data, especially data that maybe wasn't considered as a part of these machine learning or these LLM models, and them being a part of these pipelines, the same practices that data scientists have been putting into effect for the last 10-15 years still apply here. So looking at your data, creating pipelines where you're normalizing schema, and you're really creating a clean standardized schema. Really what you want to do is, and this is just my opinion, is you want to put yourself in a position to democratize as much of the data that's within your organization. So all of your workers, all of your labor force has the ability to take that data and access it in order to do their jobs as effectively as possible. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. Obviously, like going back to what I said, having governance and standards and ethical guidelines around this goes before this step, but assuming you've done that and now you have all of your data here that's ready to be used, and you have a blessed set of models and let's call it like an LLM data science workbench over here for your staff to take this data and be able to come up with the insights, the dashboards, the information they need to make decisions in order to serve your customers faster and more effectively. All of that has to be cleaned. It has to be cleaned. And that honestly, and nothing has changed in my opinion when it comes to data science. Like, everyone thinks data scientists spend all this time working on those dashboards. In my experience, 80% of the work they do is actually cleaning the data before it even makes its way over to these dashboards, like building the pipelines, continuously testing them, making sure that they're functioning correctly. So a lot of these are not new things. Like, these are things companies have been doing already. LLMs coming into the picture now and allowing users to chat with just conversational English with these tools. That's the novel aspect of it. But if you're going to be seeding, using things like RAG, or allowing a very large context length where you can dump data from external sources into the prompt, or better yet, create extensions for your LLMs to go out and fetch the data on its own using protocols like MCP. Having that data there in a clean, ready to access schema that's standardized will increase the effectiveness of your LLMs and your any sort of Gen AI initiatives you have.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So I want to thank the audience for tuning in to Evolving AI Landscapes for Business Leaders. We hope you found this session insightful, actionable, and as you explore how to integrate AI into your marketing motion. Special thanks to our guest, my friend and former colleague, Aries, for sharing his expertise. So thank you, Aries. Always
Thank you.
appreciate it. Now, to continue learning from Aries, follow him on LinkedIn, and I'll put in his LinkedIn address. Now, if you'd like to revisit today's insights or explore upcoming topics in our Marketing at the Edge series, stay connected at Marketing at the Edge. I'm Michael Elliott. Thank you.